All right, we're back, ladies and gentlemen. J.R. Moore here, our Tuesday morning roundtable on Tuesday, the 13th of April. Prep tip of the day is to have a viable escape plan for yourself to get out of the city or to help those you love to get out of the city, because what's coming, these cities will be death traps. Tuesday morning roundtable today includes my friend Leon Green, former U.S. Naval officer, Jeff Nyquist. His website's jrnyquist.blog. He's the author of 3 books, the co-author of 3 more available for sale at Amazon.com. Jeff, before the break, John made a statement that our only enemies are countries that are not part of the international banking cartel. Your response to that, sir?
Well, yeah, he wants to reduce everything to a conspiracy, to a banking conspiracy. I think the reality is much more complex, but I think in the larger picture, it's we see that socialism is a kind of new religion that has come in. It's been taught to children. It comes out of Russia and China, which are communist countries. Well, the Union of the Soviet Socialist Republics is what we used to call the empire that Russia was in. It still exists effectively. I've had people in Russia tell me that. Defectors have said that it's that this socialist religion is still trying to take over the world, and so there's a struggle, an ideological struggle they call it, and of course we've been losing that struggle because we haven't been really waging it from our side. We don't really effectively defend our values, so they've been eroding away. And of course, our military position, aside from our political position, we all saw what happened last year. I mean, we had communist mobs, essentially, communist-led mobs, BLM and Antifa mobs, pulling down statues of the Founding Fathers, American heroes and presidents. We had them burning. They were burning things. There were, $2 billion worth of burned buildings and looted stores last year. And of course, preparing for more.
Right, it's coming. When this trial in Minneapolis of Officer Chauvin ends, that's when the riots begin, that night.
And what about the Kaliningrad enclave?
Well, it's inside of Poland, basically, but it's the old German city of Königsberg, which was taken over by the Russians, and the Germans were driven out. It has a Russian population, and it's a kind of military zone. They have a military basing there, and they have troops there, and they keep missiles there. So it's an advanced military outpost.
Okay, but it's surrounded. It's got its borders on the memo with Lithuania, south, Poland. Correct?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, the problem is it's isolated. What is the position of Lithuania? Are they going to be remain neutral? Are they going to try to do forcible retake of those, or what's going on?
Lithuania's army is too small to assault the Kaliningrad salient, and so is Poland. Poland has, I think, at full mobilization, maybe 13 to 15 brigades total. Lithuania only has a few regiments of troops. These are not able to assault. They could not even defend their own frontiers. There is a gap, they call it, that leads through southern Lithuania into Poland, which they believe that if an invasion of NATO occurs, Belarusian and Russian forces will pour through that gap, and they will very rapidly link up with Kaliningrad in an actual war.
What are any ground forces stationed in Kaliningrad?
Yes.
What do they consist of?
Yeah, and they have minefields and heavy defenses. Yeah.
What are their offensive capabilities?
Kaliningrad, except for missiles, and this is debated. I mean, Bill Gertz has published on this. Kaliningrad does not itself have a ground offensive military capability. The ground defensive capability comes out of Russia. There would be an instant, very quick invasion. It'd be within 72 hours. Putin has bragged that he could occupy the capitals of 5 NATO countries. and that would be the three Baltic states, Poland, and Romania.
Okay. So really, the breakup scam did not really go according to plan, and it is it was not fully complete, and they've not been able to keep complete control of the situation, and now they're in this position. Correct?
Yeah, that's right. There's no plan that works perfectly, not theirs or anyone else's, and so they've had some severe problems. But the big advantage they got out of it was that the West released its, the West started regarding them as a friend and a partner, and started to drop its vigilance. I mean, NATO's military condition is pretty dilapidated. The U.S. has neglected its nuclear deterrent for 30 years. So that's a huge advantage they've gotten out of whatever trouble they've made for themselves.
Mm-hmm. Plus you've got you've got some of the people trying to pilfer their arsenals, and the illegal gun trade has been going through there.
I wouldn't take that. That's something. They like to put those stories out. That was a form of nuclear blackmail back in the late 90s. Here, give us money. Because we need to secure our nuclear weapons. We need some billions from you. One of our nuclear weapons might be a terrorist, So here, give us some more billions. We need to secure those weapons.
I mean, guns and conventional stuff like like rifles and things like that. That kind of went there's some petty corruption involved there.
Russia has more weapons stockpiled than any country on Earth.
Yeah, but in circumstances like that, it becomes like a candy factory to some people. Well, anyway, so has anyone ever done any a systematic analysis of how the plan, about how the breakup plan malfunctioned and how it went wrong, and how it's led to the present situation with Ukraine?
I'm one of the only people that have written on the subject, but there's the head of the Ukrainian intelligence has written some very interesting pieces related to this.
And the biggest thing though was Germany.
What's that?
The biggest malfunction with the miscalculation was Germany.
Yeah, I think the late Vladimir Bukovsky has made some statements about it. I'm not sure he's written any articles before he passed away. He knew about it because he'd stolen documents about the Russian Soviet long-range strategy from the Communist Party Soviet Union archive. And he had an associate that stole more documents, I think 50 to 80,000 documents. He said outlined their long-range plans. So he knew that they had a plan and that some things went wrong with it. I have sources that have told me about it too. You could also read about the plan in Golitsyn. Golitsyn didn't talk about what went wrong with the plan. He was basically describing what it was and what they were trying to achieve with it. But what the KGB source I spoke with said, he had been called to KGB headquarters, first chief director at headquarters, and he was told to get the banks in Austria ready for moving KGB and Communist Party money. This was at the end of the Cold War, and he said, "Well, haven't we suffered a defeat?" And the head of the first chief director had said, "Well, we've had some setbacks, but basically things are going pretty well for what we want to do." And of course, that is the way you manage a battle, is that you understand you're going to take losses and there's going to be setbacks, but you exploit your successes. And of course, it all made the whole collapse of the Soviet Union look very authentic to have things go wrong with their plan. It made it very believable, very credible, so that people like myself in the West who knew what was going on even before the plan unfolded because of defector testimony that was being ignored. Nobody would listen to us because it looked so darn realistic.
Mm-hmm. But did they have a contingency plans in place already to take advantage if anything, if any miscalculation, if anything didn't go according to plan, that they could be able to turn that to their advantage?
Yeah, there was evidence of that in the fact that these in these independent republics like Ukraine and Moldova and Georgia, there were these separatist enclaves that were created under the Soviet Union. Now, why would you create Moscow-controlled separatist enclaves in Georgia and Moldova in advance of the breakup of the Soviet Union? Well, they did it because the breakup of the Soviet Union was a contingency. And as it was explained to me, part of the reason was they needed to get the Ukrainians out of the Soviet military and isolate them in the Ukrainian military because they were contaminating the Russians, the great national Russians, with their ideas of liberty. And they needed to contain the Ukrainians. So they had their explanation. Look at the Transnistria Republic, which is along the Moldovan-Ukrainian border. That is a zone where Russian troops can deploy and are deploying right now to cut off Ukraine from Western Europe. The same thing with the various enclaves in Georgia. They're made to be able to bring Georgia rapidly under control, to control the coastal areas, to move troops into Georgia, to occupy its capital, to occupy passageways through the mountains. This is all set up by Moscow in advance, so they could control these outlying strategically important republics, Ukraine and Georgia in particular. The Baltic states, there's nothing really they could do about that. Of course, they can take those back very quickly. The ground is very flat and open, and moving on those countries is relatively easy.
And gentlemen, our next caller is Darren in Illinois. Good morning, Darren.
Good morning, gentlemen. It's a pleasure to meet you. It's a real joy to talk to you, Mr. Moore, for the first time. Jeff, I appreciate the insight you're bringing to bear today. You make me think of Joel Skousen and his warnings of impending war with China. And I'm looking at the name of Yuri Bezmenov, a Russian defector from I believe the 1970s. Are you familiar with Yuri Bezmenov?
Of course,
yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
I found him to be a very credible man when I listened to his presentations on YouTube, and I think it really speaks to the demoralization, the Marxist infiltration, the fifth column, if you will, that has infiltrated America, and I've never seen such a state of affairs in the political realm in this nation. I mean, I'm as American as apple pie, man. I mean, I've experienced all the Americanism you can throughout the course of my life, and I hardly recognize what's in front of me today. We have been utterly devastated by some kind of a Marxist blindfold. I mean, we're stumbling at this point. I mean, what do you think?
Well, I was an educator in the 1980s. I got my teaching credential in 1985 or 86, and both of my master teachers told me to study Karl Marx and that the future belonged to Marxism, and that if I wanted a really good career in education, that's where I would focus my own learning. One of my master teachers invited me to a communist meeting in the 1980s, and it was about she didn't tell me it was a communist meeting before I got there. She said it was a meeting to improve education in the state of California, and it was a Marxist-Leninist talking about overthrowing the dictatorship of the bourgeoisie by taking over the Democratic Party through its left wing. And of course, I saw these Marxists, they wanted to recruit me. And so I saw they were real and that they were highly organized, that they were in the university and in education. And Ronald Reagan was president. And I thought, well, what in the heck is this? And I couldn't say anything to anybody without them giving me a look like I was a nut. But I was just relating what was happening, what I had witnessed every day, what in my profession. They liked me, they wanted to recruit me, they saw me as potentially one of them. So I got a glimpse of something that most people don't see. And it allowed me to be able to, I was massively curious. I wanted to find out what this was, who these people were. So I started studying it and figuring out what they were doing. And yeah, they've been doing it a long time. It actually goes back to the 1920s. You'd be surprised. In 1923, there was a raid, and of course, this is 5 years after the Bolshevik Revolution, so they travel pretty fast. There was a raid in northern Michigan, and they found it was a summer camp for communists. And they found barrels filled with documents about how to infiltrate school boards, city councils, churches, everything, the education system. So they were working hard at this, 100 years ago they started, and they've been steadily working, and they've had many failures and many setbacks. They had the communist scare after World War I, and they had the communist scare of the 1950s, the McCarthy era, as we call it. But that's long gone. They've really gotten a lot of control, especially in the last 2 decades.
Yes, I concur entirely. I think they've been massively successful establishing a power lock on high in our nation, and it's as though we're I believe the word would be rife for a fall, for a massive fall. I mean, it could very well be that it's imminent. We're in such a fix right now with the economy and the supply chain and our dependence on digital technologies, electronics. We could be toppled. Without a Herculean effort, we could go down.
You have more comments here? You want to hold on to the break?
No,
Darren?
sir, but I do appreciate both you men's time. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your call. We have about an hour break. We'll be right back. All right, we're back, ladies and gentlemen. J.R. Moore here on Tuesday, the 13th of April. My website is thelibertyman.com. Professor McCanny is trusting me to help him market and sell his wing generators. I'm the only person he trusts to do that. You want to have a off-grid electrical system that really works, that you can trust for years into the future to provide what you need for your home, you need to check out the wing generator. You sincerely, you do. It's a process. It takes months to get all the engineering done, to get everything manufactured and delivered to your home. The time to get started is now. Also, we are taking delivery of energy cleaners this week, getting caught up on back orders, helping people get their lives back. Yes, we are. If you have issues with arthritis pain, you need an energy cleaner. You have issues with sleep, which will be getting worse as things get worse, you certainly need an energy cleaner. $285 shipping included, American zip codes. The mattress pads vary in price depending on what you need. We have twin, full, queen, king, California king, the handy travel size. Everything's right there for sale at my website at thelibertyman.com. You can use PayPal. Why do I like PayPal so much? Well, here's why. You're not giving up your credit card information. PayPal is great. You can send me a check. My address is there. Keep in mind, I offer a 90-day money-back guarantee on the energy cleaner. Toll-free hour line, 24 hours a day. Here it is, 800-592-9543. I say again, 800-592-9543. This is Tuesday Morning Roundtable with Leon Green, former U.S. Navy law officer. Jeff Nyquist, his website's jrnyquist.blog. Leon, you've been quiet here, sir. A lot of what we're talking about involves naval power. I've been told that there's Russian submarines off both coasts of the United States equipped with these hypersonic missiles that can be launched from submarines. the importance of naval power has not gone away, has it, Leon?
No, sir. That's how you project. I mean, you can take the sky. They always talk about the Air Force taking the sky, but you actually have boots on ground in order to do that. But in order to get the boots on ground, you have to get the troops there. So yes, if you take out any country's navy, it's much easier to conquer it because of the fact that it is a Jeff had talked about earlier, the amphibious. I mean, I worked with the amphibious divisions during the Persian Gulf War, and we were used as a diversion. And they didn't know that they were going to do a sleight of hand and come around the back door. And so, they had put up multiple divisions and companies and battalions out at the beach. They had sophisticated mines. It took out 2 ships in our task force, and so they had to go out to Dubai and UAE to get repaired. So, the use of naval implements has definitely been has always been used in any littoral country's protection and defense. So yeah, it's a no-brainer in this regard. And like what the other speaker said, or the other guest said, was we keep hearing about everything the Russians have, but just like the Black Hawk came on the scene during Persian Gulf War, and people thought it was a UFO, but they had seen it here in the States and had pictures, but nothing was confirmed. So yeah, we do have our own tricks up our sleeves too. So yeah, I am concerned about the hypersonic and the JY-20 and all the other submarine torpedoes. And so yeah, they do have many new and novel techniques, but we are not completely unprotected as well, even though we've had Obama and Clinton and all the others who've given away secrets to the Chinese. We haven't given away everything.
Right. Jeff, now I'm hearing reports, and I want your response on this, about the Russian submarines off the East Coast and West Coast of the United States. What information on that, if any, do you have, sir?
Well, the Russians made a major submarine deployment, the biggest one since the Cold War, just before our election. And those submarines have a limited amount of time in port. I understand the Russians have continued to keep the patrols up. I don't know what the latest out of NATO is. The British admiral was saying, the head of the Royal Navy was saying that they don't have the ships to cope with the submarine deployment of the Russians. It's too much. It's much more than they ever expected. The Russians currently are focused on the Black Sea. They put all their submarines in their Black Sea fleet to sea some time ago. I'm thinking that was 2 weeks ago now. I'm not remembering the exact date. They've also been bringing submarines into the Mediterranean. There was a Kilo-class submarine that went through Gibraltar and was being tracked by NATO, and they lost it. They have no idea where it is. The Russians have some new submarine technology that gives them some advantages. Apparently, they can evade the detection of our fleets. And of course, you have Chinese submarine activity as well. You don't hear as much about that. The Chinese are engaged in creating what seems to be different kinds of port facilities, sort of maybe emergency places where ships can disperse to avoid nuclear strikes. That's one interpretation. They're also lashing ships together in the South China Sea. Some people think it's to claim islands belonging to the Philippines or positions belonging to the Philippines in Filipino waters. It's very unusual if you looked at the satellite pictures of it. But so there's a lot of that kind of activity, naval activity involved. But what exactly they're planning to do, something's up, that's for sure.
Absolutely. Well, we're getting a lot of good information out for people, information that people can take and put to use to help hopefully motivate themselves and the people they care about to get ready, like the Russians and Chinese. Now, the Chinese have given similar warnings to their population to prepare for war also, haven't they, Jeff?
Yeah. In fact, last year there were several warnings and messages given to people. Different army groups, their army publications were said that this is not a drill. We're not fooling around. We are getting ready for war. Xi Jinping, the president of China, said that we are getting ready for war. That the vaccine, or rather the virus pandemic, is not to interfere with military preparations for war. And then in January, at the same time we had the commotion in the capital, Xi Jinping said that the Chinese military rather, must be ready to go to war at any second, which is really quite the thing for readiness. But yeah, they're definitely getting ready for war, and they keep saying it over and over again.
Well, it's nothing a normal person wants to see happen, as I've said numerous times in the past. But what's that old saying? In time of peace, prepare for war, Jeff?
Yeah, that's an old Roman saying, yes.
Well, that's just smart. And that means food, that means water, that means a way to stay warm in the cold weather, a way to grow food because food shortages would inevitably be part of it, a way to protect the family from criminals. It means all those things, doesn't it, Jeff?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. People have to, they have to take care of themselves. It's, you're not going to stop being hungry because a war is on. You better make sure you have access to food and water.
Well, that's why I've been recommending people get a greenhouse. A small greenhouse is not terribly expensive. Obviously, get the largest one that you need for your purposes that you can afford, and get that garden going. The fruits and vegetables, right, Jeff?
Yeah, if you grow your own food, you at least have one source of food other than the grocery store if the shelves are empty.
Right. Well, here's a couple of helpful hints. First of all, acorns can be consumed by human beings. Simply, you take the meat of the acorn, soak it in fresh water for 24 hours, change the water twice more, 24 hours, and you can crush it and make a nice grain to make bread and cookies with and pancakes. Also, kudzu, an invasive species throughout the South. The entire plant is consumable. The roots, the stems, the leaves, the whole thing is consumable. It's a tasty, starchy plant. There's a couple of food sources right there that could help a lot of people, couldn't they, Jeff?
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely.
There's a lot of ingenious things to do.
Well, people will get creative. I know here in the Ozarks, there was not a single deer left by the beginning of World War II because of the economic crisis we suffered through. But most any mammal is edible. Some of these armadillos, I don't think I'd want to eat them, especially the ones that are farther south that have really bad diseases. But people need to be creative and develop sources of food, don't they, Leon?
Yes, sir. And you were talking about the armadillos. They're notorious for having leprosy.
That's right. Yeah, and some do and some don't. The ones we have in Missouri don't have them. I called to confirm that. But otherwise, and there's also the chronic wasting disease that some of the deer have. You need to be cautious about that. And but if you educate yourself and you're cautious, Jeff, you'll be able to get by, won't you?
Yeah, well, our ancestors got by. They somehow made it without modern supermarkets.
That's right, they did. You look at what the pioneers going west had. They had, or the cowboys out in the plains. They had coffee, they had beans, they had pork for some bacon, maybe some eggs, and they got by on a very simplistic diet, didn't they, Jeff?
Yeah, well, you have to, and they got through winters. I mean, look at the tough winters they had without the modern heating systems.
That's right. It was tough, but they were tough people. And the people who weren't tough, they didn't survive, did they, Jeff?
No, people have to be able to be up to it. Yeah, we can't have all these people who are, obese and suffering from diabetes and need medication. Those are the people that are going to be in trouble.
Oh, they'll be in trouble really quick. If you need insulin every day and the insulin supply is gone, you're in really deep trouble really quick.
Yeah.
And the call number, I should say, is 512-248-8252. Let's. I know both of you gentlemen are preppers like I am. Now it's springtime, Leon. Is there any projects you can tell us about that you're working on?
Just getting our Walipini gardens going, very similar to the greenhouses, but the advantage of this is you're using the thermal mass of the earth to heat, and using big 55-gallon barrels full of water that are painted black or black naturally, and so they absorb the heat. So then you have a more consistent heat range, and you can extend the growing season by anywhere from 2 to 3 months on both sides. So it really depends on how efficient your years are. And so finishing up a lot of construction, and if you may have heard of the biogas too,
right.
It allows you to take composting food and also you use a catalyst of manure. You start that, and so this allows you to actually produce your own methane gas. And so I have a stove. I'll be able to get free gas and food production that way, and it produces composting tea as well. So I'm going to be setting that up in the next couple of weeks. So yeah, a bunch of things are going on right now, and just picked up. Regardless of what happened in Suez Canal, I was grabbing lots of gasoline and diesel, and so I have that stored away with PRIG and the algicide and the stabilizer. So I have hundreds and hundreds of gallons of that. So, I realize that, trying to make biodiesel when things are going south is not the best thing to do. So I'm just having this for both barter, but mainly for my own use and tractor use, things like that.
Right. Okay. Let's see where we are here. I'm looking at a note from my engineer, and we're quickly approaching our last break and the end of the hour here also. Let's go ahead and take this call. Kyle from Montana. Go ahead, Kyle.
Good morning, gentlemen. I was just going to say, I have a huge garden, but I will guarantee you, folks, if you're counting on trying to live on what you grow with just vegetables, you're not going to have enough. When our ancestors came west, they had very few population with an enormous amount of game. And we have a small fraction of that amount of game now compared to the population that we have now. The reason that our forefathers grew so much corn and grains, because those kind of things were heavy, starchy type foods that would sustain you, and beans and things like that. So I'm just throwing this out there. The reason that almost all of them were raising sheep and were raising hogs, not so much cattle, but a lot of sheep and hogs and chickens were their three staple meats. I'll hang on through the break, John.
Right. Okay. We got our last break. We'll be right back. All right, we're back, ladies and gentlemen. J.R. Moore here on Tuesday the 13th. Kyle, we need to make it quick. We're almost out of time, sir.
Yep. I understand. So my point is this. It's going to take high calorie, and you're going to have meat in order to survive. And 99% of the people out there ain't going to have it. So I'm throwing this out there. You better be willing and able to defend yourself, because even all these people moving out of these big cities, moving up into Montana and stuff like this, they're moving into huge subdivisions. They couldn't grow nothing if their life depended on it. And that's where most people, by a huge margin, 99%, are going to be. So you better get ready for that reality, and it's going to be a tough one. That's all I got, John.
Okay, thank you, Kyle. Okay, we'll do our summary here. Leon, you can go first. Summarize your thoughts for today, sir. Hello, Leon. Okay.
Yes, when I think about the combat potential and the likelihood of this happening very soon, this is what we've been talking about for over a decade now. Is getting prepared. So many people have procrastinated, and COVID was a great wake-up call. But how many people have continued it? Now they're reducing the lockdowns. So you really have to focus now. And the things that we've talked about, acquire them as soon as possible. At least get them in the mail. So at least you have something. But right now, a lot of people are procrastinating. I agree with what Kyle's saying too. So there's a lot to do, and now you have to focus and get disciplined. Thanks.
All right. Thank you, Leon. Jeff, your summary, please, sir.
Yeah, well, it does look like war is coming. That's what we're hearing out of Europe and out of China. And we've got at the most months. If it starts in Ukraine in May, it's merely weeks away. And with the kind of government we have, we can't count on the government.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Leon, for being with us. Jeff, we'll have you back tomorrow morning for another hour. And we do thank both of you for the updates here. It's been very informative and helped a lot of people. And I do thank you both profusely for you taking the time to do this. Okay. Well, we're pretty much out of time this show. We'll be back tomorrow morning, and we'll be covering more events of the day. And we'll have Professor McCanny with us. We'll have Chance with Simply Clean Foods, and Jeff will be back with us the third hour. Getting the information out that people need, information that will be life-saving. That's what we're doing here on the John Moore Radio Show. My archives are now on Rumble. We have Republic Broadcasting archives as well. And Rumble also posts on Facebook, of all things. And we just found that out a couple of weeks ago. And lots of ways to listen to me. And I hope you'll tell your friends and neighbors to listen to my show as well and get as many people informed as we can. All right. Rest of the week, we'll have our usual lineup. We'll have Steve Hunt on Thursday, Dr. Horowitz. And, of course, we're going to have some new doctors with us on Fridays. We'll have more about that later. Meantime, get your medical supplies, energy cleaners, essential oils now while you can, your firearms ammunition. Never, ever give up your guns. Please do a fun, safe, productive day. And God bless America.